Hey guys, this is Luke from Makes It Made Simple, and today I'm going to be talking about parallel compression, and I'm going to show you how I like to use it on drums. And so I'm going to show you an example on drums, and I'm going to show you my favorite way to use parallel compression and how to set that up. And it's really easy, and you can get going in your tracks right away. And then just keep in mind, I'm going to be showing an example on drums, but you can put parallel compression on anything that you want, vocals, a lead, or wherever. So go ahead and take this example, and I would, encourage you to use it on other examples as well. And also keep in mind that with parallel compression, this is just in the realm of parallel processing. We can do this with anything. You can do it with saturation or a limiter or anything like that. But in this case, we're going to be using a compressor. Before we get started though, make sure you look in the description below and grab my free ebook, The Effective Music Producer. I just try to pack in as much good info in there as possible to save you a lot of time, money, and frustration, whether you're a beginner or intermediate or even more advanced. I think there's a lot of helpful info for you in there. I've been producing for over 10 years now, and so I just try to put a lot of good, helpful stuff in there. And there's also a video walkthrough version of it as well. So go ahead and grab that below. What is parallel processing? So parallel processing is basically when we just have one copy of a signal that's untouched, and then we have another copy where we process it. And we usually process it a lot, more so than we would do normally. And then we combine them together so that we get the benefits of a really processed signal or a really compressed signal with the benefits of an uncompressed signal. So in this case, I'm going to show you with drums, the benefit would be that we get to keep the transients of the drums, like the really snappy parts of the drums. If you look at the waveform, like the stuff that kind of pops through and kind of adds that like nice, like the snappy, like kind of a little bit of a punch in there. And then we add in a really heavily compressed version, which is like really tightening the drums up, also adding some punch, because you're really, if you think about kind of like putting like, if you kind of think about compression, like you're taking a rubber ball and condensing it, and then you bounce it, well, it's going to bounce further if it's really, really condensed, right? And so that's kind of like how I'd like to view it in my head. So that's basically it. And then what I would say is a good rule of thumb with parallel compression is that generally speaking, the compressed signal, you're going to want to use a fast attack time, because when you use a fast attack, you're going to actually squash those transients. And so if you use a slow attack, like if you look right here, if I used on this glue compressor 30 milliseconds, well, those transients are going to be popping through. And then when you combine that with the unprocessed signal, you're going to have the unprocessed transients popping through with the compressed transients popping through, put them together, and you're not really getting the best of both. You're kind of putting something together that doesn't really make sense to put together. You can try it if you want and see if you like it. But in this case, what I'm going to be doing is really heavy compression with a fast attack, probably like a fast medium release, and then combining that in. And I'm going to show you how we can set that up right now. So first of all, I've got this drum group here, and what I like to do, I have the kick drum turned off. I like to route my kick drum to the master, and I'm going to show you a trick that we can use to also parallel compress the kick by itself, if that's something that we want to do. But right now, I'm just going to play these drums, and you can take a listen, and this is what I'm going to be parallel compressing today. Okay, so what we do is I already have a glue compressor here to save us some time, and what we can do is you can highlight it, hit Control G, which turns this into an audio effect rack. And then if you go down here, we've got the glue compressor, and now what we're going to do is we're going to hit create a chain. And I like to label this like dry, because this is now the dry signal, and now this is going to be the compressed signal. We basically like doubled it up essentially. And now if we go ahead and play it, so I don't know if it's necessarily doubled up, because I think it would be louder than that, but the way basically we've had the dry signal here, or dry signal here, compressed signal here, and that's why when I turn this off, when I turn it back on, it's adding more volume, because now we're having like parallel signals. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just turn this down, each one of these about 5 dB, and I'm going to go to the glue compressor, and I'm going to put a really fast attack, go down, faster release, leave it on 4:1 to now. I might make it to 10:1 ratio, and then I'm going to play this, and I'm actually going to solo it, and I'm going to start compressing, and then just listen to what it does to the sound. So if I add some makeup gain, you can hear what it's doing to those drums. It's really, really compressing it. And so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to have a little bit of makeup gain there, like that. And this is soloed, by the way. So now if I solo the uncompressed, and I'll solo the compressed. And now what I do is if I unsolo it and play them together, here's what it sounds like. So what I can do is I can go ahead and now bring these up to a level that I like. And so let's go ahead. This is the compressed version. I'm just going to go ahead and start playing around with this. So it's subtle, but you can hear what this is doing is it's now bringing up the quieter parts of the drums. So if you listen to that hat that's in there, you can start to hear that hat come up more in volume. And I'm trying to volume match this. That way you can hear that, you know, I'm not just like the compressed version is not just louder. And in fact, what we can do is I can actually, let's bring both these down like 2 dB. So dry 2 dB. I'm going to try to get these as close to the original signal volume as possible. And in fact, now that version is a little bit too compressed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back up the dry. So right there, I kind of like where that is at. And let me go ahead and show you another little trick. If we go here, you can also add in an EQ. Now this is what we would call New York compression, where they would boost like kind of like this. And this is parallel compression, but now you have an EQ, and now it's boosting the highs and lows. So let's go ahead and just take a listen to what that does right now. I'm going to turn it off. That's a little bit too much, but we can go ahead and play with this EQ a little bit. I'm going to just go ahead and actually, because we're not compressing the kick, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this off like this. And so, you know, what we get here is a little bit of more of an aggressive sound, more of the compressed sound while keeping in this dry signal. I could even turn this up a little bit more. And go like this. And it's really up to you to just play with this and find a sound that you would like. It would take me a little bit more time to dial in, but I don't want to just sit here dialing it in, you know, and waste your time. But that's how you would set up parallel compression, and that's how it works. And keep in mind, you can do this to anything that you want. You can do this to drums, you can do it to bass, you can do it to like any instrument in the mix, like a lead instrument, for example, which would be a good idea. And you can do it with any other effect that you want. I could put a saturator, like a clipper in here, and do the same thing. And so I just want to show you, this is, in my opinion, the best way to set this up, because you have the flexibility now to dial in the volume level, essentially, of the dry signal and the wet signal. And that's how it is. That's how it works. Another thing is, if you, with sends and returns are actually also parallel processing. And so one thing I like to do is if I'm working on something, and now let's go ahead and I'll play the kick drum I'll solo these and then play everything together. Here's the kick drum by itself. Oops. If I wanted to add more thump to this kick drum, I mean, I could also add an Ableton effect rack, but what I could also do is down here, just to make it nice and easy, I've got this set up. I call it New York, but I guess it should be called parallel because I don't have an EQ here. Anyway, I have a fast attack. I've already got this set up. And now I can just take my kick here and then I can use this send and then send it to this compressor. Let's go ahead and see this working. Going up, up, up. And now that is adding some volume to your kick. So you have to be, aware of that. Make sure that you're not just hearing like louder is better. Like, okay, it's getting louder. Is that actually better? But so you keep that in mind. But for me, this is a really nice way to add that energy of a really compressed drum underneath my kick drum that I already probably like already. It's just a nice way to really get it to stand out. So if I go ahead and play it now. Now, obviously, there is adding some volume to that, but I'm aware of that already, and I know that it's being compressed quite a bit, and that's the sound that I'm looking for. And this is generally how I go about compressing my drums. I like to group everything all in one drum group. I like to send the kick drum out to the master, because, the thing is, if you were to have the kick drum going in through the drum group and then trying to affect all the drums, well, that kick coming through takes up a lot of frequency range, is taking up the entire lower end and some of the high end, and then you'd have to just do some EQing, and it just gets complicated. Just to make it less complicated, you can go ahead and just route the kick outside of the drum group, and you can do this with any of your other sounds in any other group. And so grouping is a really great way to affect groups of instruments. Obviously, it's similar to bussing. Other DAWs would use bussing. And so anyway, like I said, you can do this kind of processing to anything, and I'd encourage you to go do so. And I just want to show you in the drums, and that's the best way to set it up, in my opinion. And yeah, I hope you found that helpful, and go ahead and like and subscribe and do all that stuff. And I will see you guys again next time. All right. See ya.